Good morning. It's Wednesday, and I'm going to give you time to come on in while I set my eggs down and pour me a cup of coffee. Good morning. Y'all come on up in the kitchen. I want to talk to you all about something this morning. Good morning, everybody. Let me know that you can hear me and see me, because sometimes when I'm on this side of the house, my reception, my Wi-Fi, everything gets screwed up. Hey, all right, y'all can hear me and see me? Good. I'm going to get a cup of coffee and some cream, and I'm going to talk to you all about the great realization and reprioritization. Okay? And I know y'all saying, Red, what's that about? Well, I've been reading several articles about the great resignation. And it's talking about how people are leaving their jobs in droves, how people aren't able to operate their businesses like they used to because they can't find employees. They're talking about shortages of laborers in every industry. They are highlighting the shortage of truck drivers and a shortage in my own profession, the profession of nursing. Come on. Now look, we got to take into account that several 100,000 people, like over 500,000 people, have died from COVID alone during this pandemic. That doesn't include all of the other people who died from old age, natural causes, murders, car accidents, heart attacks, cancer. So we've lost 500,000 people to COVID alone. And then there are people who have died for other reasons. So those jobs, everybody who died had not already retired. So that accounts for some of the numbers that you're getting about the job vacancies. They're not mentioning that, but it has to be taken into account. And we can't always go on just the facts that the media gives us. As a matter of fact, I want you all to start thinking about and examining the difference between a statistic, a fact, and the truth. Sometimes a statistic, a fact, and the truth can all be the same thing. Okay? I was born in 1968, and statistically, I am a middle-aged African-American woman living in the South. Those are all facts. I would be in a certain demographic that would be a statistic. And the things I just told you about myself are the truth, but I want you to have sense enough to realize that the facts and the truth are not always the same. Facts can be misconstrued, they can be misinterpreted, they can be presented in more than one way. The truth is just the truth, and it stands all on its own. When you learn the difference between statistics, facts, and truth, you're going to find out a whole lot of things and become enlightened in a whole different way, and might make some choices to live your life differently. And that is why I'm talking to you now about all this information they're giving us about the great resignation. And the first thing I want you to understand is that we lost a lot of people. They died, and those people aren't coming back to work. The most important thing that maybe is not being highlighted about all these job vacancies is not so much that it's a great resignation, but that it may be a great realization. people have had to come to terms with what's really important in these last, almost 2 years. In March of last year, people started getting sick, dying suddenly. And then the world shut down. And while the world shut down, we focused on things that we had stopped paying attention to. And a lot of what we had stopped paying attention to are the most important things upon which our lives are founded. We couldn't go to all of the places that normally have us out in the streets. So we had to stay at home, focus on our families, our relationships, our children, our marriages. Many of us came together during times of crisis level illness and to bury the dead. And in doing so, we found out that the bonds that we thought we had were either non-existent or not as strong as we thought they were. And many of us decided that that part of our life was going to have to change. Some of us realized that marriages that we had been in for years could not tolerate us being around each other when we all were working from home or not going to work. And we decided to change that. Some of us worked on our marriages and relationships, and some of us realized that they were not salvageable and they let them go. And in doing that, we had to regroup. And we had to realize which direction we were going to take our lives, which way we were going to go. A lot of us had time to realize that we weren't sleeping as well, eating as well, getting enough exercise, that we had put off important projects way too long. There were conversations that needed to be had that weren't occurring. Ideas, projects, things being delayed. Promises that we have made to ourselves and others had not been honored. And when we were able to sit down and be still long enough to realize that, after the realization that life is short and death is certain, we decided that we were no longer going to trade huge chunks of our time for paltry sums of money. And even those of us who made a good living realize that even when you are paid well, there are certain things that money just can't buy. I, for one, started looking over my life and realized that after a certain point, you ought to have enough of certain things that you're no longer in the paper chase anymore. After so long, you only need so many square feet in a house. You only need so many vehicles. You only need so many pieces of furniture. You only need so many pieces of clothes. You only need so much jewelry. You only need so much of anything. And right now, up until recently, we weren't going anywhere to wear all those clothes, shoes, pieces of jewelry. We weren't driving all of these cars, all of these great distances. Nobody was coming in our houses to see all of our possessions and what we had. As a matter of fact, some of us started realizing how lonely and cavernous those large houses could be when you ain't working 60 hours a week to pay for it. You realize that some of these houses was just too big. And there were some of y'all realized that no matter how big your house was, it wasn't big enough and y'all needed to sell it and get 2 separate residences to save your sanity. But that's another live topic for another day. However, in all of that realization, we started realizing we weren't spending enough time with our children. that we really didn't know what was going on with their academic progress when they came home and had to be homeschooled or schooled from a distance for a while. We realized that going back to school to get that certification or degree wasn't going to be so hard now that we could do it online. Nobody's clowning and ridiculing you for getting an online degree because it's not from a brick and mortar school now, because a lot of things have switched to being online. But in that realization, we had a reprioritization of what was important in life. And what went down on the list was validating yourself by being an hourly wage slave, working yourself to death. Don't get me wrong. We all need to be able to support ourselves. We need food, clothing, shelter, transportation, medical care, insurance, and we like to enjoy a few luxuries in life. But baby, during this time when we realized that people was dropping dead, or as the old folks jokingly used to say, folks was dying that ain't never died before. And when you looked at what some of them left here, there are people who died prematurely, who left here some things that we have long coveted, wanted, and wished for. There's a lot of people that own great big old houses. They died. They had the Mercedes, the BMW, the Tesla. They died. And there was some people with a whole lot of money. A neighbor died some time ago. Very wealthy neighbor. You know how much money she left here? All of it. Every damn dime. Whatever she had, she left it here. And she wasn't no old woman. I buried relatives during this time. I buried my father. I've gotten the news of co-workers, colleagues, classmates, and cousins who are all within a year or so of my own age. And that caused me to rearrange my priorities. At the end of the day, working yourself to death for a car, a house, some pieces of wood and upholstery, some pieces of metal and stone. Is it really worth it? How many people do you know have worked those 25 years on a job, could have went home and retired? They stayed 5 more years, and then when they retired in May, they finally retired in May and dropped dead in July or August. It happened to a very dear friend of mine. How many people do you know should have retired 3 or 4 years ago? Didn't do it. Now they're dying of cancer. How many people do you know would have taken the time to spend more time with family if they knew that last Christmas was going to be mama's last Christmas, daddy's last Thanksgiving, their sister's last birthday? Children grow up all too fast. How many of us, not knowing how much time we have, foolishly trade precious time that we could be reading a story to our grandchildren, making bath bombs with our nieces and nephews, having a margarita with your sister, a girls' night in, watching movies, drinking wine and eating popcorn, reminiscing about the old days, going over precious memories and making new ones. You don't ever know when it's going to be that last warm Sunday afternoon that you get to have dinner at your house and enjoy your friends on your porch or your patio. You don't know which weekend is going to be your last road trip. So is it really a great resignation? Or is this the result of a great realization and reprioritization of what's really important to us? Are we now using that dining room table for some Sunday dinners and eating off the good dishes? Versus 2 years ago when the dishes stayed in the china cabinet because we didn't have time to eat. We were running through the drive-thru, poisoning our systems with bad food, not getting enough sleep, so that we could get a pat on the head from people who see us as disposable. Honey, listen. Some of these vacancies were created by people who died, whether it was from COVID or other causes. But I guarantee you, if they were at work that Monday and they died that Monday night, that their job vacancy was posted before their obituary was published. If I was walking the halls of a hospital today and I dropped dead in the middle of that hallway, they're going to move my body out the way and they're going to be calling some staffing agency or some new recruit. They're going to pull them out of orientation early to make sure that that job gets done. And nowadays, baby, they won't even send a green plant to your folks. Y'all, you know, I used to tell y'all, stop going broke trying to impress other broke folks. Y'all better stop killing yourselves, working 70, 80, 60. Baby, let me tell you something. To be honest with you, slaving 5 days to get a 48-hour reprieve, which only gives you enough time to do the laundry, reorganize, and pack enough lunch to go back and do it 5 days again, ain't the business no more for me. Never has been. Matter of fact, I want to do some research. Who came up with the 40-hour work week anyway? I've come to be very grateful for the time that I've had to go somewhere I wanted to go, do some things that I wanted to do, with people that I wanted to do them with. Last weekend, a couple weekends ago, I had the opportunity to spend time with family at a wedding, stop and visit a dear friend, and hang out with a cousin that I hadn't hung out with like that in years. And it made me think about how many dollars an hour could replace time with family. How many dollars an hour or how much time and a half would replace me being able to sit on the sofa of somebody else that's from back home? I know their story. They know my story. How much is it worth? Do you really need that designer purse? How many hours you got to work? How much of your life is it costing you to accumulate and keep all of these things? Maybe that's why some people aren't returning to the office and the assembly line and the warehouses like they used to, because they realize life is short, unpredictable, but too precious to waste. If your wealth is only added up in the amount of money you have in the bank and the things that you can put your hand on, you're actually living in a severe state of poverty. Your real friends and the people that love you, they don't care if you have a Mercedes or a foreign car or not. They don't walk around with a tape measuring the square footage of your house. They don't care if you've got the latest designer look in your home or furniture. A very prominent gentleman came to my home for a casual dinner one day. It wasn't a formal dinner party at which I sent out invitations. They just stopped by one Saturday evening. And on the way, they wanted to know had I cooked. And I had. And when the gentleman came to my home, he was accompanying a friend of mine. And I, at the time, not realizing the true occasion for fellowship and friendship, I said, "Come on in, Mr. So-and-so. I know you've been in much finer homes than this, of all the prominent people that you associate with. But such as I have, you welcome." He said, "Look at him, Chris. I ain't no damn real estate agent. I ain't come to see your house. I ain't finna list your house on the market. I came here because I'm hanging out with a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours that we both happen to know. And when he said he was coming to your house and was going to come over here and get him something to eat and talked about how nice you treat people in your kitchen, I came too." He said, "Hell, I'm coming for the food. If you want somebody to assess your house, you need to get you a real estate agent." So I proceeded to go into the dining room at the time when I was living in Mobile. He said, "I ain't want to go in no dining room. You can leave them dishes in the china cabinet. The food in the kitchen, and that's where I want to go." From that moment on, I realized that whenever somebody enters your life and your space, if they are there for a genuine reason, they accept you as who you are, how you are, and they are honored to occupy the space that you own and that you allow them into. And at that moment, I realized that as one person, regardless of how my coins would ever be stacked, I don't need a 7,000, 9,000, 5,000 square foot house. And I wasn't going to work myself to death to accumulate a lot of things, die early, and work so much trying to impress other people who just as much at work as I am that I never had time to enjoy them. I think that what's happened is not so much a great resignation, but a great realization and reprioritization. How many mornings have you gotten up, rushed out of the house, stopped and got an overloaded sugary cup of coffee at your local coffee shop, forgotten to take your medicine and your vitamins, on the phone multitasking, and you do it all day to come off of a job, run by the store, run through the drive-thru, or fix some food that's pre-processed, eat it in a hurry, lay down, and do that all over again? Haven't you sacrificed enough? I'm not telling you to just walk in and tell your supervisor, "Take this job and shove it." No. Simplify your lives. The luxury of simplicity is one of the things that I've realized lately. A lot of people go on these jobs, they want to work themselves to death to move up the ladder so they can have some power. Baby, unless your name is before that LLC or that Inc., you ain't got no power in that place. You just got some permission. You want some real power? Power is what you can do without. The more you can do without, the more power you got. So, in this time when life is fleeting, short, precious, and unpredictable, realize and reprioritize so that you can have more quality of life than quantity of stuff. that you just gonna die and leave here anyway. I ain't telling you not to enjoy your life, baby, because I do. But you got to have time to enjoy all those things. What good is buying all them clothes and pocketbooks and cars and stuff if you ain't got time to enjoy them? What good is having all that big old house you ain't never got time to invite your friends and family over to enjoy it? Think about it. You better live while you living. Because when you dead, you're going to be dead a long time. Be good to yourselves.